Hi, this is Rachel with the Book Mavens, and today I have several reviews to do. I've got 5 books to go over with you. I really wanted to, I'm going to do a duology that's been out for a long time. It's not new, but the author who had released one of my favorite books so far this year, Divine Rival. So I wanted to talk about one of her other duologies, River Enchanted and A Fire Endless. So I'm going to talk about those today, and then I have a few other newer releases. So the first I'm going to talk about, I think I'm going to go with the YA first, and that's Cursed Crowns. So this is the sequel to Twin Crowns. I did a review on Twin Crowns. It was a really anticipated book for me because of how it was hyped. It was hyped to be kind of Princess Bride funny, and it didn't deliver that for me. And but I had pre-ordered the Waterstones, so I have them that match with the Wren and the Roses, of course, for the twins, to match my other copies. I do think the artwork on these are really pretty. They're really cute. Here's the thing about this series. I don't hate it. I don't hate it, but I don't love it either. And for whatever reason, how they end these books makes me want to pick up the next one. And I've got to be honest, and I think I said it after Twin Crowns, is that there's really only one character in here that's worth reading for, and it's Shenlo, and he's not one of the sisters. I find the sisters to be not that great. They're kind of one note for me. Wren is the tempestuous one who was raised by witches and tries to steal her sister's throne. And of course, at the end of Twin Crowns, they work it out and they decide to co-rule. Meanwhile, Rose, the one who's been trained to be queen, gets kidnapped and sent to live with the witches, and they have to find out about, it's kind of a Prince and the Pauper retelling, to kind of find out about her own history and the fact that she is also a witch. So they have different powers. So Rose here is a healer, while Wren is an enchantress. So she can kind of, not an enchantress, what do they call her? Maybe that's it, I forget. But where she can kind of manipulate different things, kind of like charms, I would say. So she was able to alter her appearance enough to be able to look like Rose, to take her place. Anyway, so now we have 2 witches on the throne, and it's causing quite a bit of unrest. The whole kingdom is built on this idea that witches were evil and no good and need to be eradicated, and now we have 2 witches on the throne. So we know that there was going to be drama. I was really hoping for more political intrigue, but alas, I didn't really get it with this one. Rose still being this very, you have to admire her confidence. Rose is very confident that she knows best, and is very, very naive. That I'm going to go on this tour through my kingdom and show everybody, what a great gal I am, and then they'll support us. Wren is less enthused. She's really worried because her grandmother, or their grandmother, was taken by another kingdom. And so she's desperate to get Bamba back. That's her grandmother. And she can't focus on anything else. She becomes very single-minded and very, very selfish when she does this. This is what I'm telling you about these girls. They're very selfish. Shenlo is a witch who, participated in kidnapping Rose, and so they have this whole romance going on, and he's adorable. Honestly, the only way that I really see Princess Bride is him as kind of like this Wesley character. Very, very light. I don't really consider it like a copy. He's not as good as Wesley, but he's pretty entertaining. And then, of course, we find out more about him. He has more character development and a little bit of a convenient plot device in terms of what happens with him and their relationship, and whether or not it's possible becomes a lot more possible by the end of the book. Meanwhile, Ren, who knows? She had this whole thing going on with the animal guy from that kingdom, so then she's over there. We think, oh, well, maybe they're going to rekindle stuff. I don't know. Now she's making eyes at the king, who's super weird. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Just these, like I said, they're not really well written. It is an easy read if you're interested in picking it up. I will read the next one. I don't know how many they're planning on doing. But I wasn't in love with them. They're just okay. They're just okay. So in my little star ratings that I have going on for myself, I put this at a 2.5. And a 2.5 stars to me is, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. That 0.5 means that there was something, like in the end, something that makes me say, okay, well, I'm going to pick up the next one and hope that the series just gets better, that I just need to know what's going to happen. But I wouldn't necessarily just run out and tell everybody they need to read these. Already, like, plot lines. I mean, the more I'm talking about it, the more it's coming back to me. But these aren't storylines that are really going to, like, stick with you. They're just really, you know, just light. 2.5. It's the best I can do. And that's being generous with these books. All right. So the next one I wanted to talk about is a brand new release. This just released, I don't know, like a week or so ago. It is The Stars Are Dying by Chloe C. Penaranda. I did an unboxing with this one. I was very excited about it. This author also wrote an Air Comes to Rise series, which I have not read, but people seem to have good things to say about it. I was interested in the series, and so I decided to pick up this one since it was a new one, just kind of get a feel for her writing style. If the Air Comes to Rise, people are gonna have to tell me, is anything like the writing style in this one, I will not be picking it up. I'm very conflicted over whether or not I will continue this series. I really struggled reading this book. It's definitely kind of a Romeo and Juliet, enemies to lovers-ish, kind of, sort of, sometimes and not others. Really weird storyline. And one of my groups online, I was talking about this book, and I said, you know, I don't really know where it's going. And that's fine if I'm enjoying the ride, but I really wasn't enjoying the ride. I was waiting for things to become significant. Like, this whole thing is that this girl, and I can tell you, I mean, I can pull exactly what you borrowed. I can tell you, I mean, so it has elements of Guild. So our main girl, what is her name? I've forgotten. I literally finished this book today and I've forgotten her name. Estrella. There it is. Girlfriend just kind of wandered out of nowhere, doesn't know who she is, been living 5 years in this tavern / brothel hidden away by this guy Hector. And long silver hair, all of these weird glowy celestial tattoos on her. And so there's like this, and there's this war, or there was a war, and this is the problem, is that the mythology, the background, so murky. None of it is clear to me. I had a really hard time with this book, and I don't feel that the story deserved that level of complexity. Anyway, so you have this group, the Celestials, you have the humans, and then there's vampires, and apparently there's like the Lord of Death, who's, you know, like handing out powers willy-nilly, who knows. So, and you have different kinds of vampires. It's like a whole thing. So we have a human king, and he runs like this trial, and for you to become like one of his golden warriors. So it's a competition, and so Estrella sneaks out occasionally. She had made friends with this girl Cassia, who was chosen. She's selected to be able to go compete in this contest, right? So she makes a plan to escape this really abusive relationship. I mean, this man has sex with her. She's not allowed to be seen by anybody else. Like, that's why I say Guild. It very much reminds me of Guild in that way. But there's this whole myth this like history, I guess, of the Star Maiden and this other entity. We don't know who it is. Well, we find out later, of course. And like the whole thing, like what she's able to do and how people respond to her. Like, why don't the lights go on? Why does she not realize that she is the Star Maiden? She doesn't know who she is. She's appeared out of nowhere. I mean, it's so, you know, you can understand like a character having a little bit of reluctance or wanting to claim this chosen one kind of status if it was particularly dangerous, but that the level of self-deception is unbelievable. I didn't like it. I mean, you know who she is from the get-go. Watch it. It took way too long to get anywhere. The romance, which is there, she has this entity that kind of follows her around, talks to her, and that it takes her so long to figure out that he's not actually physically there. It's painful. Like, it's utterly painful how naive she is. I found it really hard to believe. I found everything about it to be ridiculous. So we still don't know everything. Like, people have still not told her by the end of this first book, like, what's going on. And it's like, the mystery isn't worth it. It's not worth it. The story's not very good. And you've got this other entity goes by the name Night, who turns out, you know, like, oh, you know, well, back before we had another life, you know, we were lovers, and then we almost like destroyed the world apparently because our love is ill-fated or whatever. That's the Romeo and Juliet bit, star-crossed lovers going on, but it doesn't make any flippin' sense. They haven't explained why this happens. So you just kind of like, I'm not explaining this well. I'm rambling as well, and I apologize. But this book, I don't get it. So if somebody else has read this book, because it is a new release, explain it to me. So right now, I am sitting like at a 1.5, 2 stars. Somebody's going to have to sell me or explain something that I've missed along the way for this to really make sense to say that this is worth reading. And I will say, like, comparing it to Guild, Guild is a rough book. It's not my favorite out of that series, the Plated Prisoner series. But there was enough story. There was enough going on where it gave you hope that there was more story. I have no idea where this is going. I don't know if I really want to be along for the ride. It's just weird. And the side characters are just not fleshed out well enough. I don't really understand them. I'm at a loss, guys. So this just wasn't very good. So if any of you guys pick this up and read it, hopefully not based on this review, but maybe something else, let me know if you decide to continue with this one or not, or how you thought about, or what you thought about it. All right. So the next book I wanted to talk about, also a new release. So this is the second book to come out by Red Tower Books. So I've talked about it before. Red Tower, anyway, the imprint that I do plan on getting all of the first editions to come from this this imprint. And so we've talked about Fourth Wing, that was their first one. And so Starbringer is their second one. So this book was talked about. I always like when they do mishmash, like it's this meets this, because sometimes that really helps me decide if that's something I want to pursue, or I look for if it's like a specific storyline that I really enjoy. That might sell me on a book. All right, like the Twin Crowns, Cursed Crowns, that it was Princess Bride. You know, of course I want to pick up something like that. So this one was described as a cross between Firefly, the TV show, which is awesome, and The Breakfast Club. I'm like, that sounds interesting, to say the least. And I haven't read like a really good space sci-fi movie in a while. I'm like, well, I'm going to pick this book up. It's another chosen one trope. There's a bit of a mystery going on in this story. So what's happening here is that we have all of the planets around, they're not our planets. This is like a different solar system somewhere else. Earth isn't part of the game here. Where their sun, it's setting off solar flares, and it might supernova. Is that what has? I'm not a space person, but the sun is dying. All right. So these scientists have figured out that there's this weird like black sphere thing, that the ancients, we don't know who the ancients are, but there's like another alien race, that had been on these planets before in the system, with alien technology is what it's talking about, that this could be a weapon or a way to combat what's happening with the sun. All right. So we have a princess, all right, daughter of the Empress, who's running the solar system between the Empress and the corporation. So we have two entities, or two, whatever. So, you got the political side and the financial side, basically, of who's running things. And you have different things happening on these planets. And so some planets need resources from others in order to survive. There seems to be like a lot of poverty. This system doesn't seem to be very egalitarian, let's just put it that way. So the Empress sends her daughter, the princess, to see the unveiling of this new science that's going to supposedly save them all. So she's on this separate like space station. Meanwhile, there's a religious organization there as well who are talking about allowing the sun to die, that there's some prophecy that will save them. Something's going to save them at the last minute. So they send their high priestess, who is reborn all the time to serve this specific purpose. And so she's there with her bodyguard, and then you have this weird scientist lady. You've got this other guy who's acting as a guard for the scientist lady. That's not what he's really there for. He's kind of a mercenary. And then we meet a couple of other characters along the way as well. And something happens on this space station that we end up with the princess, the priestess and her bodyguard, a techie, the mercenary's friend, and an escaped convict all end up on this alien spacecraft. Okay. And so chaos ensues. I don't want to give too much away. Probably kind of explain the basis of what's happening here. As they're trying to, number one, figure out why there are people after them trying to kill them. Princess is learning not great things about her mom. We learn that there's a lot of mistaken identities. The mistaken identity stuff comes out pretty early. To me, you can tell what's going on. But like what's happening with this really interesting sentient spaceship, what's its connection to the ancients, what's really going on. It ends on a huge cliffhanger. I will say that I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was a lot of fun. Would I give it a 5-star? No. Would I give it even a 4-star? It was very heavily tropey, and I like tropes, depending on how well they do them. They did them, it was a little heavy-handed here and there. I think that the next book will be where I would really see what the rating is. But I would give this a solid 3. A 3 means for me that I would definitely pick up the next one if it's a sequel, that there was enough going on in here for me to be invested. There is a weird storyline where we have our main mercenary guy, and what is his name? Let me tell you. Let's see. Nope, can't tell you. His name's not on here because I've forgotten his name. Ian, there it is. So Ian's our main mercenary, but he's got this best friend named Max. They look kind of similar, and they were raised horribly poor, and they're trying to find a girl. And so that's a whole thing. That's a whole big part of the storyline, is that they're trying to evade these things, trying to figure out what's going on with the sun, and also trying to figure out where their sister is. And then you find out something really weird about Ian and Max and their supposed sister. it's really weird. That was something that I didn't really see coming, and I don't really know if I like it. I don't want to give it away because it's definitely a big, wow, where'd that come from, moment. But I'll let you guys sit and remain on that and decide whether or not you want to read it. I do like it. It's just been a while since I've picked up anything really science fiction related. And this was fun. This is a very easy read. The characters are really fun. The dialogue's pretty snappy. This was a lot of fun. So I would definitely recommend picking this up and giving it a shot. Now, there might not be enough going on for you to want to continue it, but I'm definitely going to pick up the second book for this series. So solid 3, maybe 3.5 stars I would give this one, which is not a bad rating. All right, so the last two I want to talk about in this video are the Rebecca Ross books, A River Enchanted and A Fire Endless. All right, so my first introduction to Rebecca Ross was Divine Rivals, and I really loved it. That's a 5-star read. I will be giving people Divine Rivals for holidays. I recommend it to everyone. It's beautiful. If you like fantasy, if you like historical fiction, it's the perfect intro to either fantasy or historical fiction. It's very, very light to me on the fantasy elements. There are fantastic elements, but it's not really like heavy into the lore. I think that's going to happen more in the second book. And I really like that Rebecca Ross does duologies. So I think she has Divine Rivals, and then we have A River Enchanted, but I think that she has another duology, maybe 1 or 2 other duologies. I just think it's interesting that she does that. And I like it because often with trilogies, you get kind of a filler book where maybe not a lot happens, but these together are flawless. Rebecca Ross has become an absolutely auto-author for me. I do have Dreams Lie Beneath by her, and I haven't read that one yet. I want to get the sequel because the thing is like the way that A River Enchanted ends, which is the first one, you immediately want to pick up A Fire Endless. So, so I definitely did that. I read these back to back, and I really enjoyed the experience. I thought these were really beautifully written. She has wonderful prose. There's a dreamy quality to Rebecca Ross's writing. So with A River Enchanted, this takes place on like an island, Scotland, this island that is cursed. So we have 2 groups of people, and there's a boundary line on this one island. And they were trying at one point in time to make peace. So a man and a woman from each of the clans got together and married, and then there was a horrible disagreement between the 2 of them, and they kind of cursed their lands. So one land is very plentiful. They can grow things, they have enough food to eat and shelter, but doing any kind of magic drains them. It slowly kind of kills you, so very little magic there. Well, on the other side, it's like fog and rain and wind, and it's really, really difficult to grow anything, and so that clan will raid the other one for stuff. However, there's no penalty for using magic on that side of the boundary line. So we have these 2 clans at, very, very tense time. So in A River Enchanted, we have this fella named Jack, and he had left. He was chosen by the chieftain of the clan because of his musical ability to be able to leave and be schooled off the island. So he gets summoned by Adara, who is the chieftain's daughter, to come back, that he's needed. So he returns to the island, and it turns out that female children are going missing, and we need to know why. And it turns out that a bard is gifted with a type of magical ability to talk to the fae folk or the fair folk that exists on this island to try and figure out where these girls have gone. To me, it's not much of a mystery. You kind of know who took them, but it's really just trying to figure out how, because there's all of these mystical elements keeping these clans apart. And then a horrible choice must be made at the end of A River Enchanted. And so this picks up with A Fire Endless. Now, we have this entire relationship happening between Jack and Endara, and there's a love story there, but you also have her cousin and the healer woman relationship as well. Now, they're married. His wife died shortly after giving birth to his daughter, so he needed a mother for his daughter, so married the healer woman. And their relationship and how it grows and develops slowly and so beautifully about sacrifice and pain and truth and all of these things. And it's just done so wonderfully across these two books. I actually liked reading their relationship probably even more than I liked reading about Jack and Adaris. But you have to read them and you have to let me know. These are absolutely 5-star. These are beautiful. If you love Scottish folklore, anything with more of a traditionalized trickster fae, not like big, you know, bat boys kind of deal. I don't mean those kind of fae. I mean like the trickster gods, the elemental spirits, not gods, but fae folk. Then you'll love this. So if you're somebody who really like the Cool Prince, there are elements of that, the kind of holly black fae, that comes across in these, and they're just beautiful. These are beautiful books. I will go back to these, probably not every year, maybe like every 5 years, and want to reread them because they are really, really beautiful. The writing is so wonderful and perfect. So I do highly recommend these. So that's it for my reviews. They weren't all kind of knock it out of the park books. A couple of them were just okay. This summer, especially during my week being child free, I did knock out a lot of books. So I will have another review coming that really gets in. I went kind of down this romantasy rabbit hole. And I definitely had covered quite a few titles. I hit the bookish box titles pretty hard. I read quite a few of those. So I'll do another video that's much quicker. I'm not going to go into a lot of plot detail like I did in this video. I'm just going to give you a heads up about these books if they're worth checking out or not. But that's all I have for you, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.